This is the Team Objection Podcast for May 3rd, 2022, episode 526. Even my camera is slightly off center. I don't know what happened. I fixed it now.
I spent so much time on mine, actually. I spent so much time making sure I was dead center. Everybody else messed up. Why did I try?
I heard Dave talking about what a nice guy was in the break.
You heard half of that conversation.
That works for me. That's all I need. We'll leave it there.
You will take what you wanted to hear regardless of if you heard the whole conversation
Probably
or not.
True.
So it doesn't matter, actually.
Probably true.
We could save a lot of time that way, actually. I don't know why we didn't think of this sooner. It's a mistake on our part.
I've been doing it for a long time.
So I have a thing that I just ran into this evening
God.
I need to bring up just so Sean can shit on it. That's really the whole point of bringing it up.
Well, let's see. Well, let's hear it.
I mean, so I had a very shit long day at work today. I didn't get home until about 20 minutes ago. And so I get home and my dinner tonight consisted of all the food my kids didn't eat. I think I've hit that level of daddom.
Well, what food was it? Maybe that's fine.
Courtney marinated carne asada and grilled it. And so it was carne asada tacos.
I mean, that's not so bad. If it was like bowl of cereal or like macaroni and cheese with hot dogs in it, which actually would be kind of fine too.
I guess, again, life is all about expectations. I expect to be shit on for things, and when I'm not, I'm pleasantly surprised. And when I expect to have a good point and I'm shit on for that, it hurts even more.
This is so funny because ignoring what you just said, I thought you were going to say, life is all about expectations. When I get home, all I want is goddamn dinner from my wife ready on the table, and all I got is the leftovers from my stupid kids.
But here's the thing. It was. Dinner literally was made by my wife on the table. The problem was I got home too late.
Yeah, no, you need your own menu.
Okay,
like, it should be like a wedding. Like, you choose, like, I'm going to have the fish tonight. Your kids choose, I'm going to have the macaroni and cheese with the hot dogs in it.
That was not stressful at all.
That would be way better. I think Courtney would like that, too.
I think she would probably go on some sort of killing spree.
Wow, that's a lot.
That
doesn't actually take, that means it doesn't take a lot.
I mean, it's just, that's a lot of different things to cook. And then the worst part is cleaning up 3 different meals and then having the leftovers of 3 different meals. That refrigerator is going to fill up fast.
The leftovers is fine. I will give you always have to have the recipe. Like, what if you have the ingredients for, like, the steak and everybody chooses the chicken and the fish? Now you have all the ingredients, but you can't even make the thing. That's what, you know what happens. That's what she gets to have. See, it's fair for everybody. Whatever everybody else doesn't choose, she can have.
But here's the real thing. You're raising really shit kids if you allow them to just pick what they want to have for dinner every night. No, we made dinner. This is what you eat and deal with it.
Well, you got to work them. If you work the kids in the day, then they earn the dinner.
They work by going to school.
No, well, yeah. And then they come home. They got to do the chores. They do chores. If you wake up at, like, I watched this movie called Coda. This girl wakes up at like 4 a.m. every day to go fishing, then goes to school, then goes home and works. That's what you could do with your kids.
I want them to hate me one day. Good.
That's right.
You don't need their like. You don't need their love, Dave. You just need. It's your job to make sure they have a good life. I read that.
That's what I'm trying to do, and also have them have a good life after they leave my house, so they're not pieces of shit that demand macaroni and cheese and hot dogs for dinner.
Yeah. Well.
We've spent too long on this topic. Move on.
I liked it. What do you want me to do with it? Nothing?
I thought you were just going to be like, oh my God, Dave's talking about...
Well, I did, but, I got to try to make the best of it. When I have a bit, and I'm like, this is going to be really fun and exciting, when I talked about civilization, and if you guys, like, don't give me anything, that's so disappointing. So, again, I'm going to give you something no matter what it is.
I expected it to be negative, and this was positive-ish.
Probably safe.
Speaking of bits, it's an okay segue. We got a 5.5 out of 10. I decided, because we were all slammed today, that I was just going to recycle some things we hadn't done in quite some time. You can see them on the right-hand side of the screen if you're doing this show correctly and watching it. But if you're listening to it, we're going to do a time capsule. We haven't done a time capsule in probably 150 episodes. It's been quite some time. And in fact, looking through some of the past archival stuff, I realized that we made a mistake And I'm going to say we, even though I was the one keeping track of everything, because then again, nobody else was doing shit anyways. So it's a group effort.
True.
In that we didn't write down the past time capsules we did and what made it in and what didn't. So we'd have to go back through every episode where we did it and see. I couldn't think of some off the top of my head, but Lord knows I don't remember all of them and what failed and what made it in, So that was a mistake. We didn't do that with Hall of Fame, a segment I thought about bringing back. And let me tell you one name that was on there that was funny, Will Smith.
Yeah.
As an example, and J.K. Rowling's another one.
J.K. Rowling and
one that is like those are all just that was the time at which we nominated them. But we'll have to think about that if we ever bring that segment back, and I think we will at some point. We'll have to kind of decide: do we want to retroactively look at things we've done in the past, or are we just going to let it ride with whatever we did at that time?
We actually did Will Smith, or was just nominated?
He was one of the ones on the list of prospective upcoming ones to do.
I was like, I don't remember a lot of what we do. I feel like I would remember Will Smith. We did Johnny Depp. I think, maybe not. We definitely did J.K.
He was on the
Rowling,
list. I don't think he was actually put through the ringer.
I could look. I don't think we put him through the ringer.
The timing of when you talk about people until they're dead is a big deal, and then even then they might not be completely safe.
Yeah, I mean Bill Cosby.
Yeah.
Well,
Louis C.K.
That's why, I never want to get a tattoo. Sometimes it's like you're gonna get a tattoo, and then the person's gonna end up being like doing a hate crime, and you're like, great.
I've always made the joke of there's some 37-year-old kid a 37-year-old guy in Boston named Roger Clemens Johnson, and he hates himself every day because Boston people hate Roger Clemens. So
that's right. We did do Johnny Depp, and he made it into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, see, that's what I remember. I'm pretty sure fair. I would have voted Fame, but I was outvoted. We had Michelle still on the show at that time, and her taste is bad in everything. So. Yeah.
I'm also not a big Johnny Depp fan, so I doubt I helped.
Probably not.
I mean, I didn't give him a bad score. It takes just a 6 to get into the Hall of Fame, but I can't imagine.
His performance during his trial has been really good so far and really funny.
I have watched literally nothing of that.
Maisie shows me like the highlights. Surprisingly entertaining.
His performance in his trial has just been every other character he's ever played. Smarmy, attractive, clever.
What I'm realizing is he's just kind of playing himself in every movie. I think this is actually Johnny Depp.
That was what I said back then when we rated him.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like, yeah, you think Jack Sparrow, and that's an iconic character, and then you look at other roles Johnny Depp has done. It's like, wow, I see an awful lot of Jack Sparrow in that, just without the fancy costume.
Yeah.
Huh. Uh-huh. And that's fine. He's certainly not the only person to be typecast, but. Anyways, enough about Johnny Depp. Our time capsule topic today, because I actually have slides to click through now, we've advanced so much beyond the last time we did this, is a weird one. It's one that's been on our list for a long time. Some of these things that are in the planner are ones that we put in there maybe 5 or 6 or 7 years ago.
Probably more.
And for some reason, this one clicked with me, and I decided it was going to be the one. So, for those who are uninitiated or have not been around in quite some time, time capsule, or buzzkill as it was once known because it was ruining the things of our youth. Time capsule is a segment where we rate things with a score back then, what we thought of them at the time, and now, with the benefit of hindsight, it has to get an average of 7 or better between the three of us now to make it into the time capsule. Because even if we love something back then, if it sucks now and doesn't hold up, it's not going in the time capsule because then in 50 years the aliens will open it up and be unimpressed. So
they're going to be so impressed by the 90s internet.
I mean, this is
oh man,
and this is foundational internet. Now, the 90s internet's a little bit vague, but you can make of it what you will. You know what you were like in the 90s and how that went for you. I mean, we're talking the peak of AOL. We're talking the very beginning of file sharing at the tail end of the 90s. We're talking, GeoCities websites and really, really old browsers, and even some sites like Google and Yahoo were just getting started. When you were either in school or at home and you were getting on the internet for the first few times, what do you remember?
Well, I was going to say, you can't talk on the phone and be on the internet at the same time, so that was a pain in the ass. Trying to talk to my little, let's see, this would have been high school girlfriend. See, my 90s internet experience is like the internet that I had in the 2000s, but for me, it's the 90s internet because I was late to the party.
I think I remember the very first time I ever actually got online. A friend of mine over at their house had, I think it was 95 or 96, had AOL. And that was before even URLs were a thing. So it wasn't even we were typing in www. whatever. It was go to keyword Nickelodeon. So we went to Nickelodeon's AOL page, and it was mind blowing to me. I'm like, wait, this is like connected to another computer. I can play games on this thing.
Yeah, I didn't understand it.
It was just one of these things that I remember hearing the noise and thinking like, this is it. This is the future. This is everything that science fiction has ever told me was going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. So all I can think of is all the bad things. What I used it for though is just like reading. Do you ever see Boy Meets World, Dave? And Mr. Feeney was like, you all have all the collective knowledge of humanity and you're like bitching about whatever. I relate to that. I used it. Was Wikipedia in the 90s though?
No.
If it wasn't in the 90s, I basically used the equivalent of Wikipedia to...
They had the Encyclopedia Britannica online.
Well, okay, probably not that. Because for example, I'm looking up what happened in like a plot synopsis for every episode of Dragon Ball Z. Because I couldn't watch Dragon Ball Z, so I had to follow it by researching it on my own. And I did that for every show that I didn't have cable for. And so all my obsession with like anime and all these television shows, like I was just reading about it online.
I'm trying to remember what I actually did. I remember doing a project once online where I had to go over to my dad's friend's house because he had Netscape, was I think the internet browser that we used at the time. I did a research report on Apollo, the Greek god. And it was just like, I'm not in a library. I'm like at a house looking up things, like getting pictures. Oh my gosh, this is amazing that I'm not like sitting in a library opening a book. It was kind of just crazy, but I never used it I don't remember using it for fun stuff. I know I shared on this show once one of my first experiences when we had internet at home and wanting to go to the meninblack.com website, which was not the movie at all, unfortunately. And that was exited quickly and confused me.
See, Dave was one of the ones that's like loading like the porn image, but it takes like 45 minutes.
One line at a time.
And you're like, come on.
There's a horror that dawns at a certain point. You get a certain number of lines across the screen, and you're like, oh, this isn't going in a direction I like. And then you very quickly have to close the browser tab.
Yep. Or it's like, it's loading. You're like, okay, this is going to be this great picture of, 90s girl, Pamela Anderson, sure, whatever. And then it comes down, it's like a picture of like a clown right here. So it's like, haha, you got tricked. And it took minutes of your life.
But that was like 7 minutes it took to get to this point. What the hell? And then imagine being in like a public library and trying to access the internet for porn at that time.
Yeah.
Those are hard days. Hard days indeed.
I mean, not in the library.
90s internet to me encapsulates just the early days of it. I'm not specifically looking for the 90s, which is why I include the things like Napster in this. That was the point. I mean, the internet was neat. I first experienced it in school, so we didn't have a computer at home. What are you kidding me? You think we have money? But then at school, it was still kind of a neat learning opportunity because you had Google. You could look up things. Ask Jeeves was a very early pioneer in this, where you could be like, hey, I'm going to ask this weird fictional butler a question, and it gave you an answer. You're like, oh, shit. But it was Napster and its related programs that were the eye-opener for me because I was the kid who took a Walkman and would hold it up to the radio to record a song that I liked, which was tricky because you had to know the song was coming. And of course, they don't always announce the song beforehand. Sometimes they just start playing it. So the idea of being able to look for songs and get them, forget the fact that it was free. That was also kind of neat. And there was a whole pirating thing, obviously. But just being able to search through songs, that was the moment where I was like, oh my God, this is the next generation. Yeah, that was it.
I remember trying to do the stereo with the two tapes. They had two tapes on it, so one you could play a tape and like record it on another tape, or just keep a blank tape in the radio and then the song comes on, hit record on the stereo to start recording what was on the radio, except the DJ would talk over like the intro. You're just pissed. So yeah. But yeah, if you want to go into that region of like LimeWire, Napster, that type of thing, what really was like the eye opener for me was songs, like you said, absolutely. Like, I'm just going to download this song, and all of a sudden I have a CD that I burned in 20 minutes of here's all these a mixtape of songs. And Chris knows I burned like 4 of them, and that was on rotation forever. But the other crazy thing to me was videos, like getting snippets of Saturday Night Live and playing those to death and memorizing the whole damn bit was just mind-boggling to me.
I wonder if Maisie ever had a MySpace.
I mean,
I
think Maisie was probably, let's see, trying to think of her age. She was, too young for that, probably.
Probably, but we'll see. She was in the chat. We'll see what she says.
Yeah, I'm curious to know about that. Wasn't allowed. Perfect, Maisie. She was not allowed to have a MySpace because she was
That sounds
out
correct.
of nothing.
Well, MySpace was satanic worship, so that makes
I
sense.
I remember MySpace being such a big deal, and then once you got everything set up, you're like, oh, there's nothing to do. Cool.
So what's the difference between like MySpace and like Facebook, though?
Nothing at the time.
Okay.
Especially, now because MySpace died and Facebook has changed, it's a little easier to differentiate. But other than the small things between the two, like MySpace was a little bit more for music, and you could like list your favorite things, and Facebook was a little bit more for like chatting on top of your social posts. They were pretty much the same.
Well, and then Facebook was like only college for a long time.
That's right.
Yeah, good. Yep.
So I wonder if that legitimacy helped it.
And now it's for 60-year-olds who were not college students back then, so that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Doug points out something in the chat how he feels bad for his parents for early internet, that they had to get a secondary telephone line. I remember that too. My parents had to get a secondary telephone line because my dad actually did work from home sometimes in the early days of the internet, which was kind of crazy to think about 25 years ago. But what actually I find funny is that it was like everybody had one phone line in their house forever. Then in the late 90s, early 2000s, a whole bunch of people got two phone lines. Now nobody has a phone line anymore.
Yeah.
It's kind of just funny how that peaked off.
I like to think the people in charge of the phone lines were like, we're on top of the world.
We're never
Our lives
going
are only
away.
going to get better.
I kind of wonder how many people struggled and for how long in the beginning, because I remember in my household there was definitely at least a month or two where there was not a second phone line, so you had to be extremely strategic about when, like, you weren't getting online at like 6 p.m. because somebody could call then. But if it was 10:30, then yeah, go ahead, get online and do your homework or whatever, because no one's going to call us at 10:30. What are they, some kind of savage?
Your parents didn't let you get on at 6 to do homework?
Well, first of all, we ate dinner at like 4:30 because my family's always eating dinner extremely early.
Okay.
So 6 o'clock was not really meant for that. It was meant for like the end of family time, and then you do dishes, and you can eventually move on to like, usually I'd help put my sister to bed because she was super young. And then finally, maybe I'd get around to doing homework, which, if I'm being honest, was usually just doing like an online Whose Line Is It Anyway group and not homework at all, while hiding that in the corner of the screen so it looked like I was doing homework.
I still marvel to this day at your speed and accuracy of typing while hiding it from your mom. Just blown away by how well you were able to do that, because I participated in many of those chats.
Yeah, I don't know. I've always had a good multitasking ability. I guess some of it is always applied to what we do here now, like building things and working within confines. And I was a decent typer from the beginning because we had started that in like 5th or 6th grade. I definitely honed my skills there because it needed to be, okay, I have about a minute because mom got up to, it's a commercial on her show, so she's out of the room. Because the computer was in the living room. It's 4 feet away from the couch, and then the TV's on the other side. So it's right in the middle of those two things. So I very quickly had to be, okay, I'm going to put this, it's going to be the active window. I'm going to drag it down to the bottom right corner, and I'm going to type without seeing, and boy, I hope it's not fucking wrong. But I have fond memories of that, even though it was subterfuge at best.
So back then, what do you rank it back then?
Like a 10.
I don't know. It was pretty cool.
Maybe a 9.5, because you couldn't do like a lot of the things you associate with the internet now, like all these videos and YouTube and the things that have become super popular, either weren't around or were not anywhere near the level they are now. Even I don't even include like the early Flash movies and that revolution. Homestar Runner, that was 2004. Like, I'm not including that in the early internet, but for what it was, information on demand, searchable. It was the beginning of a huge uptick in fantasy sports because you could do all that online and connect with people and do that easily. The file sharing, connecting to people across the world, like it just, maybe it was because I was young. I was 11, 12 at this time when it really first got, I probably had a computer at home when I was 13. Maybe I was impressionable, but I was blown away. I was like, wow, look at this.
I don't want to go too low, but I'm thinking like a 6.5. Like, I just didn't use the thing. And when I'm thinking, like, how did I spend my nights? It was watching The Simpsons and writing, like, my own story. None of which I needed the internet for. I just didn't go on the internet that much. I didn't do all the sharing. I didn't do the online gaming. I didn't do any of it.
I didn't do a lot online until I was about, like, 15 or so. I think really once people started getting on AOL Instant Messenger, that was like my first, like, I'm on the internet every night, because that was the social currency almost. It was like, this is how you connect with everybody. This is how you keep up with your friends, is that every night you're going to finish your, finish whatever chores you have to do at home, finish your dinner, and then go online to do homework. And then you're sitting there talking to your friends for 4 hours before you go to bed every night. And that's kind of how it worked.
See, I just talked on the phone.
See,
which is weird because I hate talking on the phone now. I never talk on the phone.
You would only talk on the phone to those who you had like specific things to say, or your girlfriend at the time. But when you're in AOL Messenger, you could talk to 6 people at a time, and you'd talk to people and like say hi, and then not say anything more after that, but feel like you're connected because you were like able to say something if you wanted to.
And you're not tied up the phone line, which is important because you can only have the one phone line. And somebody else calls, they just get a busy signal. So then you get yelled at.
Yeah.
I mean, I get yelled at.
Messaging now is cool. Like if I lived far away from you guys, I'd be messaging all the time. But back then, 6.5.
The way our school worked too is that where Chris and I were, our high school especially, like we were all spread out throughout the city, so it wasn't like we were just down the street from each other easily. I mean, Chris and I lived as close to each other as many people did, and it was not a quick walk or anything like that. But back then, I mean, that was a 10 for me. It was just the experience, the ability to download anything I wanted, get songs, movies, clips of TV shows, talk to people whenever I want. Like I was all the time. Like that was a 10 for sure.
And Doug asks, who does homework at home? The answer is I didn't. I usually did my homework either right before or right after a class.
Yeah.
Sometimes by cheating, sometimes by copying off of other people. Sometimes people were doing that to me. Sometimes we were doing them together right before class started. Sometimes, especially in that Spanish class where the teacher was super lax and or deaf and or not in tune with what was happening, I was doing them as the answers were being revealed, or when she was starting to walk around the room and picking it up, I was on the other side of the room writing furiously. So yeah, the answer was almost never. Now, a big project, stuff like that, obviously, you did work on the side because you had to, but run-of-the-mill homework, it wasn't happening at home.
We bought the guidebook for my math class. Like the textbook that they taught out of with that we derived all the homework from. They had like a guidebook that shows you all the answers. And what was nice is like your teacher's always like, well, show the work. This had all the work too. This is like, here's all the steps that you should be doing. And then what you do is you intentionally like mess up here and there, so you're not just like perfect all the time down to every step. But man, that was great.
Man, yeah, I tried homework at home. I think it taught me horrifically bad habits into like adult workplaces that I had to break, of thinking like, oh yeah, I'll just do this for like 5 minutes before the meeting starts, like no big deal. And then I kind of got into not super professional like career level stuff, but I got into like a real job, and I'm like, oh, I can't do that. I'm completely unprepared for this meeting. That doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
But we could talk for like hours about the bad habits that school sets up for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is tough because to me, the spirit of this is measuring sort of what that was like with today's goggles. Comparing it to the internet of today is a fool's errand because it would be like a 0 because of the dial-up nature of it
right now.
Yeah. So like, I don't really intend for it to be that. I still don't think this has a good chance of making it, but I just wanted to make that clear up front. To me, we're scoring this based on like, how good was that at the time without it being like this phenomenon that we were swept up in? And again, not like, well, yeah, that internet sucked because it took me 10 minutes to load an image and now I can queue up a 4K video in seconds, because that would, again, it would be a blowout. It would be no shot. It'd get a 0 or a 1. So that's kind of the idea behind the ranking here.
Yeah, I forgot a little bit. So, because one thing I was getting ready to say, like, internet now is a 10. I love the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Use it every day. Get to work from home. It's awesome. I would probably change my score back then to like a 7.5, because even though I didn't use it that much, it was still pretty cool. Now it's probably like 5.5 looking back, because again, I came in with the lowest score. Going lower than that, it's like, yeah, all the things you love, but worse.
Yeah, I would agree it would be lowered. I would probably go down to about 6.5, because the novelty of it was so huge. Sending out emails to everybody in your high school class of surveys of like, here's my name, here's my favorite food. Hey, what would you do if the person sending these to you had a crush on you? Like that type of stupid thing. Like all that stuff was like played out to death in a very short period of time. So like the novelty was such a big part, and then it kind of died off. So without even comparing it lowers, because when you look back at it, it was like, I was young and dumb and didn't even realize the power that this had, and because I wasted it on stupid Saturday Night Live clips.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you know what? Jaguar though brings up a good point really quick. As like, yeah, we would definitely rate the internet as great today, but like it's also so much more toxic and terrible. Yeah. And even if that's just because social media gives people the platform to do it, however you want to argue it, it's undeniably true.
Here's the thing. It is more prevalent toxic, but if you ever have seen old 90s chat boards, unmoderated 90s chat boards.
True.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they had a show called To Catch a Predator on, kind of based on that.
I mean, just even, it wasn't that. Like, so here's a really anecdotal story, but my dad tells me that when he was an engineer, like 1989, 1990, they got email in their computers for the first time where he worked. And it literally took like a week before people started arguing company-wide emails about politics. A week after email started, people were sending company-wide emails talking about how Bush sucks or whatever. It's like, holy shit, already? Like, this stuff isn't new. I wouldn't say it's more toxic now. It's just more widespread.
More amplified. Yeah. Because, I mean, look, there was Adam and Eve, and there was the Garden of Eden, and they fucked that up within a few days. And that's pre-internet. That's pre-everything.
That's true.
That's creation. And they screwed it up quickly because humans are stupid.
And you know, everybody has a platform now, though. That's a little bit different, too.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Which sometimes is good.
Yeah.
Most of the time is not, because the people who have those platforms are boring or uninteresting or have bad takes. But, you know, the ability to sort of start your own platform, kind of like what we're doing, but obviously there are much more popular and successful people than us. In a lot of ways, that's good, because now anybody can become like their own celebrity if they want to put in the time and the work, if they have the personality. You have a way to get out there that you couldn't have done 50 years ago. You had to go to Hollywood.
Well, I even heard in a podcast, like with basketball players, you had the 7 Seconds or Less book, and if there were any criticisms or anything happening in that book, like Steve Nash didn't really at the time have a platform to get online and like punch back. Not that Sean Marion maybe. But,
Sean Marion would have been a negative Twitter user.
Yeah.
No question.
So it's just like, yeah, it's so different now. Anyway, back to the scoring.
I'll give it a 7, which means it's not going to make the cut. Kind of had a feeling it wouldn't, but I wanted to talk about it because I was thinking about it with something else I saw online earlier today, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, because I do have a lot of fun memories back then. The truth is, a lot of it was just the phenomenon, and not even just judging it by today's standards. A lot of what you could do in the very beginning of the internet was not that exciting. It seemed like it was because it was all new, but then you look back at some of the old Space Jam site is still up. You can go check it out. It's a nightmare. I mean, but it's there, and you can see like, oh yeah, it's a website, and you look at what it has and what it looks like, and you're just like, oh yeah, this was actually not great.
I remember being so confused by what the internet was, and I just didn't understand it. And I remember being taught like the first day that we were like, hey, today we're gonna learn the internet, and it was just wild.
Yeah, I remember learning about web addresses in school, because now .com is just part of the lexicon. You don't even think about it anymore.
Yeah.
But then it's like, okay, you have to go to this address, but you can't just type this. You have to put in this and then .com or the handful of other ones that were around then.
Yeah.
It's weird. Now it's second nature.
And websites back then, like every movie that came out in the late 90s had a website, like Space Jam, for example. But when you go to that site, it's like Space Jam, May of 1996, and that's it. Like, there wasn't anything else on the website to do.
There's a shitty little web counter. So as you can see how many people have visited the site. There's a little counter. And there might be a few images, probably small, and usually a lot of loud backgrounds, sometimes like different colors. And it's just not, and again, that's fine. That's what it was back then. You couldn't do a whole lot more elaborate than that because you didn't have the capability. But I mean, it's not good enough to make it in a time capsule.
Video game reviews. That was cool.
And guides.
Back when IGN used to do like not gaming and like a bunch of stuff. They had like a section, it was like cars and like sports and like babes. I remember that, and I was like, that's probably not a good look now.
I would assume my most visited website of the early 2000s was GameFAQs. Because it was similar. Because not only did you have guides, and you could queue them up on demand and not have to buy one for $20, but also they had like forums. They had the contests for like which character was the best.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of stuff where it was like, oh man, like look at this. This is my community now. And now GameFAQs is dead. It's not actually dead. It's still there. But
here's how old I am. I would absolutely copy and paste like game guides if I needed assistance getting through a game and print it out. So I just had it ready because I couldn't sit next to the computer and play PlayStation.
Oh yeah,
2.
true. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Last question on it. Did you guys ever make your own website on like GeoCities or any one of those old website building sites?
Not for myself, but I had a site on Tripod that I did for that Whose Line and other game show community that I was part of. And it had like standings and scores and upcoming schedules. And so I don't think I built one for like myself. It wasn't like, this is ChrisEvlin.com. But I built some back then with GeoCities and Tripod and whatever shitty tools we had. And then I eventually ended up building this on WordPress. So I guess it paid off.
Just for class. I think we had to do a website where like I sold Christmas trees. It is like as part of the homework.
Nice.
That was it.
Nice. I made a website where I recapped all of my freshman year basketball games. So I actually really wish I could find those. So I'm curious to see what my writing style was and what I wrote about. Like our team.
I know there's not limitless space out there, but I'm kind of frustrated that there are certain things like some of the old recaps we would do for 2K or our Rock Band performance when the tour bus came through Flagstaff before the game came out. I wish those were still out there somewhere so I could like grab them and keep them because they're sort of like a photo or, those are memories of a crucial part that are just kind of gone.
Yeah. And especially GeoCities, because that was hosted by Yahoo and Yahoo still exists. So
mostly.
Where are your fake recaps about Borstia eating too many donuts to play effectively?
I would assume those were on a server that 2K hosted because I think it was through them.
It was.
Could, like connect it to the game if you uploaded the box score or whatever. I haven't tried searching for them, but I don't even know where the hell I would start.
They were pretty good because you made fun of me for not having a job. So cool.
Yeah, see, I was actually mean to you before Sean even knew you.
I know.
And then once I saw Sean come in, guns a-blazing, and I was like, I better ease off a little bit. This is gonna be rough. So Chakrok brought up an interesting point that we kind of dusted off, but it's funny to bring up now when he mentioned if homework is allowed today or considered cruel and unusual punishment. Because among the things that are considered cruel and unusual punishment, as we switch to buzz off, is anything that you can have fun with on a fucking playground. So this is one that's been in there for quite some time as well. I think Sean put it in because I don't remember doing this one. And for those who again are unsure, buzz off, and I think we call this death match later, but I just wanted to call it buzz off because I think it's better. Was where we took two things and pitted them against each other and sent one away. So we declared a winner. That's why we switched it to death match because buzzing something off meant we selected it as the loser. It was early. The show was still learning. But I wanted to call it that here.
It was a gem. We should have kept it.
The point is we have a head-to-head matchup here between what is the better piece of children's playground equipment, jungle gyms or swings?
I mean, the answer is easy.
It is.
The answer is easy unless you're like, I got to play by all the rules on the jungle gym. Then it's harder. But the swing does one thing. Mm-hmm. All the swing does is swing you. Jungle gym, you can do anything. The lava game.
On this?
Wait, what?
How the hell are we disagreeing on this? There's one clear answer, and you got it wrong.
Because, Dave, do you know what I would do on the jungle gym? The jungle gym to me was like my own parkour like arena. Okay, see on the video on the image those monkey bars. I'm on top of the monkey bars. Okay, I'm walking across them. The ground is lava. You're playing tag. You're doing adventure games, pirates and shit. It's way better than the swing, which. You can use the swing as part of the overall jungle gym like experience. That can be like, the boat when you're getting away. But then you got to escape the boat by climbing up the chains onto the metal kind of casing, and then you shimmy over to the slide, and it's so fun. It shouldn't surprise you. Hearing this now, you should be like, oh yeah, actually that kind of tracks with everything I know about Sean.
There's nothing inherently enhanced by the fact that you can run up steps or go down a slide that you couldn't make in your own imagination in a field. Like, are
you kidding? You don't have a slide in a field?
No, I like this because we now have Dave on the side of imagination, which is truly something that I did not think we would see.
Look, you can go down a slide. Woohoo! Who cares? The thing was, especially by the time I was, even in middle school, the thing was basically my legs dangled halfway down the damn thing anyway, so it wasn't even fun at that point.
Yeah, well, you're going down the slide on your butt. First of all, for example. I'm going down the slide on my feet or my head first, And
I want to be clear, slides are not part of a jungle gym. Slides are their own entity.
Well, I mean,
Jungle Gym's pretty much anything with bars. This type that's in the picture with the overheads, the ones that were built from the ground, look like cages or domes, or there's a lot of things Jungle Gyms can be, but slides are their own entity. They're not part of this buzz off.
Look, what Doug said makes a lot more sense. I agree with him. I was never a Jungle Gym kid. I was Foursquare. I was running around. I was playing sports, tetherball, that type of thing. That's what was fun. And swings especially were fun because how high could you swing and how far could you fling yourself off that swing? That's the fun part of Jungle Gyms versus swings.
I mean, that's okay. That's okay. You got to make an obstacle course out of the Jungle Gym, first of all, and then you start timing how long it takes you to get from one side to the other. But like the course, right? So like it's not just do the monkey bars, which I used to do as a kid really easy, and then I went through a period where I could not do them anymore, and like now I can again. That was a weird like parabola thing that happened with me and monkey bars. But that's where the fun is. Swings, Dave, I will grant you, was fun, but not to use them how you're supposed to. What was fun with swings is if you had one of those really long like bars with like a million swings attached to it, what you do is you get a bunch of people going at once, and then you got to navigate across while the people are going like a Legend of the Hidden Temple. They're like wrecking balls coming in, and you got to dodge them. Yeah,
and sometimes kids got obliterated by that.
Oh,
you know what? We learned a lesson, didn't we? Learn timing.
Yeah.
I got hit by that once. I got clocked. I'm sure I caught a couple of kids too. I mean, at the very least, I know I was there for one of them where it was just like, oh yeah, turns out if we're swinging and we're going at least like 180 degrees, we're getting some pretty good speed, and now somebody runs through and not paying attention and just boom,
would get slammed. I'd be like, fucking Jace. And now I think about it, it's like he was the one on the, like he had no way to control when I would cross.
No, he's a victim of physics. There's nothing he could do.
Yeah.
Man, that game was never played where I was. Like our duty aides at school would have like shut that down immediately.
Yeah, my school and probably Sean's, because where I went to elementary school was a ghetto like Kingman, were very much lawless regions of just, there was somebody around if somebody got hurt. It wasn't like it was totally unsupervised, but they were not checking in as far as like, hey, don't do that. There was no don't do that.
Yeah.
They got mad at me for flinging myself off the swings, but still I did it.
Dave, have I ever told you a story about Kids Castle? So my old school,
in 520 episodes, yes, you probably have.
No, so my old school had this giant. Now I am sure it is a little bit larger in my memory, being a kid looking at this thing, but it's still pretty big for like a jungle gym. It was this huge wooden structure that was in the back of like in the lot where we did our recess. Dude, seriously gigantic. All these different towers, and like you go inside of it, and there's slides, and so it's like a jungle gym encased in a giant castle with wings and all of that. And it was so cool. But then you start getting like cliques of like the cool kids. It was kind of like recess, seriously. And now that I think about it, but you'd have like the ghetto where like all the kids that nobody liked would like kind of inhabit this like dank corner of the kids' castle. Then you'd have the cool kids on another section, and you do races and tag, and oh, it was amazing. But it was all wood, so you get just like really bad splinters. and one time I jumped over somebody, and I clipped their head, and I guess they were crying. Later, I was told. I don't know.
I guess.
You ran fast and ran far. You have no idea.
Yeah, I was told later, like, hey, and it was a girl, I think, too. They're like, hey, you know, like Brittany, when you like jumped over her, I was like, yeah, that was cool. They're like, yeah, you kicked her in the head. She was crying. Like,
yeah, you Thor kicked her. Whoops.
Yeah.
I will say, Chakrock, jungle gyms, I think, are still quite a thing. The difference nowadays, what I see a lot of kids' schools, is that they've replaced the sand, which, by the way, they never like stirred it up so it was soft again. Like if it rained, it would become just as rock hard as possible. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't even safe at that point. No, they replaced a lot of parks and a lot of schools have replaced sand with like that rubberized kind of bouncy stuff, which would still hurt to fall on, but you're not getting a concussion on. So that's fortunate.
That's an improvement. It's also cooler, which obviously doesn't matter everywhere. But for us in Arizona, because I mean that was the problem, right? Because I had those playgrounds like Sean did. Some of them were made out of wood, which had splinters and was bad. But then there was the alternative was metal, which was death in Arizona in the summer, or even just in the start of the school year or the end of the school year. We're still triple digits plus, and that stuff is baking. Like I drove by my elementary school a few years ago, and for the first time I noticed they put a giant canopy over the playground because they finally realized we should probably provide some shade. And while some people would lament the fact that kids are not having the full experience, like that's one I think we can go ahead and slide on. We don't need kids to roast at 125 degrees.
Yeah.
Man, I can't imagine. It's hard to believe that we used to go. I remember there was one day, like in May, it was like 117. It's like, get outside. It's recess time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Maisie brought up wood chips. I have a scar on my leg from wood chips.
Those are awful.
I dove out of the way of a swing and I cut my leg and I got like the wood chips inside my leg and
that's why he hates swings.
And,
all right, Chris, who's deciding vote here?
So I think this is a close one. I thought the two of you would fall on this side of it, which is why I selected it. I didn't want to pick a 3-0 for our first foray back into this. I think jungle gyms can be really versatile. One of my favorite games was just the one with like straight up monkey bars, like just 2 poles on the sides and like intermittent, right? You would take a ball like a kickball or something and shoot it into it. And depending on which one it landed in, it was worth different points or different people got points. There's a lot of different things you can do with it that make it versatile. The standalone ones, again, like the cage, the dome, or whatever, you could hide in for tags. So that was nice because by the time somebody got in, you could escape. It was also fun for dodgeball because you could still hit people, but it was tricky. So it took like a skillful shot. Because if you played dodgeball on the playground and people went up where the slides were, they usually had those railings. It's like, how are you supposed to hit them? They duck down. You're on the ground. Where you're going to lob it up,
they have
I
the
guess.
high ground, teaching a valuable strategic lesson.
That's right. Anakin would have valued from playgrounds.
Yeah.
Instead, he just had sand people.
Exactly.
So that's a colossal mistake on the part of his upbringing. I was a swings guy. I like both of these, so it's tough, but I just loved swings. Swings were fun with the group. Swings were fun for exactly that game with running through. And again, you could also do like ball-based games with those. You could play dodgeball on the swings, which seems dumb because again, you're kind of stuck. But you could, if you could catch it, you then weren't out, and you could switch. Like to me, it's just amazing how much stuff we came up with as kids without even really realizing we were doing it. Just making up games on the spot with imagination, a couple of balls, the equipment we had. Like we were smart, even though we were dumb. But I'm going with swings. It's 2-1.
Doug wrote skin should be played more on the jungle gym. He meant Anakin, but I left plenty of skin on the jungle gym.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, we all did. That's one of the worst times I've gotten injured was I fell off the top of a jungle gym and hit my face on the way down, so I had this black eye. It was like second grade. And my mom had to come check it out because she was like the nurse and stuff, and it was just.
See, I'm not arguing that you're not going to get hurt on a jungle gym, right? Like to that point, I'm arguing that it's necessary that you look. If you have 1 in a million people, fatality from a jungle gym, then honestly, it's just not like your day. You were kind of unlucky.
Your life.
That's it. But
I will.
I can live with this.
I'll say real quick I like that idea. Like if they're imagining us as kids without all of the different technology things. I know kids don't do it nearly as much anymore, but like I want kids to do that now and like have to be bored and make things up because it's just, I don't know, it's worthwhile. I think it's good for them. Yeah. And second, I have to reminisce for a second of that feeling of weightlessness when you flung yourself out. You got yourself going on the swing, and when you flung yourself off for that like half second to a second, you were just completely weightless flying in the sky. That was a great feeling. I miss that.
You get 7-8 feet in the air.
You would get really high in the air.
You're kind of launching yourself, and who knows what you're landing on. Is it grass? Is it sand? Is it ground? Cement in some case? Like, you got to stick that landing. So that was kind of neat because people go, well, you could jump off a jungle gym and do that. It's like, you kind of know.
It's the upward momentum of the swing counteracting gravity because you're throwing yourself up, and then gravity catches you, and for that second, you're just like floating. And
you're used to the way that the swing goes back and forth. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. And you normally go, okay, I'm at the apex, and now I'm going to go back because that's the whole thing. But when you let go, there's that minute where you slide off the seat, and then so it's just that whole experience of like, oh shit, okay, landed, cool,
it's actually not as bad for you either. Like if you were to jump off the jungle gym, which is like stupid. Now we're talking about it, but like all that force is going straight down. Yeah. On a swing, it's mitigated a little bit by the force that's pushing you forward too, so it helps a little bit.
And you could occasionally go for height and fuck up and let go too soon and then go forward.
Yeah,
and that was always rough because then you're not prepared for that landing. And you're like,
I am really happy you brought that up because there's a couple times you did that where you screwed up and let go too early and you just went like shot out of a cannon straight forward, just rolled.
We had swings in Kingman that I shit you not. Were probably the chain to the top of the thing. In my memory, we're about 2 stories tall. So you're swinging like A ridiculous amount. I'm gonna try to. It was crazy. Because like I would go to that park and my dad and my uncle would swing on those swings because for them adults are like, yeah, this is more our speed. It was insane.
That seems like death if you try to jump off of
You
that.
get really high, yeah.
There was also one time when I was like 10 or 11, so I was bigger. I hadn't really grown yet. I was medium height then, but getting to like 5th grade. And I was on a swing set at a park I didn't usually go to, and I was like swinging. There's a couple other kids on it, and we got good momentum going. And then you could feel the swing set rocking.
Oh yeah.
And like legs were tilting up on both sides.
Yeah.
And even as a 10-year-old, I was like, I'm gonna go on the playground then. I'm not about that life.
Yeah. Did you guys ever do backflips?
No.
Off the swings?
Yeah,
No.
it's not like quite what you think. So like when you go up, you can get really high.
You can twist it, and
you just kind of like lean back and then you fall. Not like you launch and then you're doing.
No, you kind of tumble off the back. I saw kids that did occasionally. I was
I was terrified of anything backwards. Forwards, I was great. I'll do front flips all the time, but backwards.
So it's just a little daredevil, I guess.
I was just worried about getting caught. Like I wasn't even worried about like the drop or the landing. I was worried about like doing it and then like a leg got stuck. And now I'm like dangling and my head hits the ground.
Yeah.
I imagined a lot of worst case scenarios when I was a kid because I was also somebody who was very sure that you didn't turn inside out if you flipped over the swing set completely. But a little percentage of me was like, I don't know. I don't want to be inside out. That looks all my organs and stuff. I like my skin.
Yeah. And speaking of death traps, we got to do a trampoline at some point. Because I own like one of those big trampolines, and they're like, "Oh, innocent fun like toy for kids." It's like, no, it really is like you're gonna
death
get murdered. Yeah,
but a of fun things you can do on there too, and some of them involve balls again.
Yeah, we're gonna get on that eventually.
I have a second buzz. Well, okay, it was death match. See, I can't even keep them straight in my head. It's been too
long. Off. We buzzed off. Jungle gyms.
I have a second one planned, and I'm going to show it to you, and you're going to see why we're not going to do it this episode. Ready?
Oh my!
Mario versus Link.
Let's save this one.
These were actually going to be for the series, the Mario series versus the Zelda series.
Oh, okay.
It was one we had not even had on the list. I just happened to think about it, and I was like, that could be, because I thought the first one, I was like, it might last a while. Let's be honest. When we were doing these segments before, when we were, young baby children doing this, we probably would have only gotten about 4 or 5 minutes out of Jungle Gyms versus Swings. We didn't really give things the room to breathe. We followed the structure closely. We just spent like 13 minutes on it. So
yeah, because Dave would be like, I'd be like telling a story. He'd be like, anyways, back to swing.
I'll give it a score, and you're like, no, we could have more. There's more in the tank. If we blow this now, we'll never come back to it. But because of that, I put in 2, thinking, that might be about the right pace. And I still want to talk about the Suns, and it's already been 50 minutes, so I think we're just going to save this.
Yeah. Let's save it. Yeah, you could almost do, depending on how you break it down, it could be its own episode.
Could be. It's a massive topic. And I thought, well, we'll get at least 15 out of this one if the other ones go a little shorter. We only had 1 time capsule. We used to do 2.
I think overall we're all going to agree, but it's still worth the discussion.
It's also going to be dependent on how you define it, because the Mario series has a lot of other stuff in it besides just the Mario games.
Yeah, that's true.
Like kart and sports and etc. So it could be fun. I thought it'd be fun to see, but because we would just be running through it quickly for no reason, we're skipping that. That part doesn't exist, but you saw it. You saw a tease.
Teaser, it's coming.
So I'm confused. We're going to talk about the Suns. So if you hate the Suns or you hate us, you can tune out now. I don't think you should, because stay, because it's fun.
That's right.
We're like your friends. We're like friends. You're on the couch and we're just shooting the shit, talking about the Suns. I texted Dave and Chris, and not that I'm taking credit for this, because I think a lot of fans agree with this. I was like, I don't know why I'm supposed to be nervous about Dallas going into this matchup, especially after the Pelicans. They were a matchup nightmare for us. They played us really tough. They were clearly better than the 9 seed that they came in as. And I look at Dallas, I'm like, we've never struggled. I look at what their team is. I look at heliocentric Doncic is, what supporting players he has. I don't see how they're going to be a threat. But everywhere that I looked, now Dave's going to argue with me, everywhere that I looked, it was like Suns in 7 at best, or Dallas in 7. There were a lot of, some had Dallas in 6. And I was like, what am I missing that everybody else is seeing? And so far the answer has been nothing. I've missed nothing. Dallas kind of sucks.
I'm super curious where you saw all these people picking the Mavericks, because I've seen like 1 national person taking the Mavericks, and that was after last night's game, and he's an idiot. So
right. All 20 ESPN pickers had the Suns. Mostly in 6. I'd say 6 or 7 of them were in 7 games. 1 or 2 were in 5.
Yeah.
I wonder. So I heard a lot of people being like, "I'm really tempted to take the Mavs," and then I wonder if they actually like chose officially the Suns. But I get a lot of that verbiage of like, "I gotta tell you, I'm really struggling," and I'm like, "Why?"
That's classic prognostication, so they can cover themselves later because they have to lock in an official pick.
Yeah.
But this way they can be like, "Well, you could see I was on the fence."
But when you look at the series objectively, you look at the recent results, you look at the style of play between the two. Last night's game was a microcosm of all of it, wasn't it? Yeah, Luka went nuts. He scored a whole bunch of points. Didn't matter. Like the Suns, I mean, mentally, physically, whatever it was, they clearly let up at the end. Like their execution was flawed. Their shot making went down. They let up at the end, and the Mavericks came back a little bit. That was a dominating game. There was never a chance going to win that game. Never.
And the thing is, like, they could surprise us, but here's what it would take, basically. I think the Suns are going to win in 5 or 6. Mm-hmm. For the Dallas to win the series, and if they do, this is what it's going to take. Overcoming everything else. Like, they're going to win in spite of the matchup, which basically just means their players, despite getting bad looks, are just going to hit, like, incredible threes that, like, there's nothing we can do. Or we're going to go ice cold for no reason, even though we're getting consistently open looks. Because that's the thing. Our defense is good. Everybody's like, well, Jalen Brunson's not going to shoot that bad. I don't know about that bad, but he was covered the whole game. It wasn't just like, oh, he was struggling with confidence. We had him locked down. Like, he was getting bad looks. The whole team was, except for those wide open threes, which we really got to clean up. But
yeah, I mean, he'll be better, I think. I think that's fair to say. That's probably going to be his worst game of the series. I hope it's not. It'd be funny if it wasn't. But like, people are like, well, he had like 42 in that game in the first round. It's like, yeah, in a game without Luka, who's going to dominate the ball the entire game,
and Utah
against Utah's shitty perimeter defenders, of which we have almost none.
Yeah,
like Campaign is a minus defender, but he's going to play 13 to 14 minutes a game.
Yeah, I'm interested. Chakrock says Luka was awesome, but they don't have enough around him yet. I agree with you to an extent. But I think that will never occur merely because of the style of ball Luka had. I think I can't remember the exact stat, Chris, so help me on this. But Luka had the ball for an average of 12 seconds per possession.
12.3 seconds per possession, and remember, there's a 24-second shot clock.
Yeah.
So this means literally half of every possession, Luka just had the ball in his hands.
I think to meet you in the middle, though, Dave, like if Luka had like a Klay Thompson or something. Like a player who is just an elite spot-up shooter to where when Luka finds him, he's going to hit it. Even if the defense rushes back, like that could be the partner that Luka needs. But yeah, I mean, you watch him in that game, he was scoring, at will in some ways. But like you notice when we played Brandon Ingram, he was lights out. He was crazy. So we had to start throwing doubles. With Luka, we're like, you're going to eat and we're going to allow that, but we're going to do our best to like make sure that the rest of the team doesn't contribute. And they didn't.
They didn't. I mean, I don't know. What gives me even more confidence is the fact that in the first half they did. Max Kleber was 4 of 4 from 3 to start. They made 9 of 3, I think, in the first half.
Yeah,
like
9 of 16.
Everything to me except Luka's shooting in the first half. I think at one point in that game he was 10 of 25 before he kind of hit a few shots at the end.
Yep.
So like Luka got his, and the Mavericks shot well in the first half. You would figure and Ayton had 1 rebound through the first half. Like you would figure that's a recipe for success for the Mavericks. And they were down by double digits at half.
Well, they were down by double digit. Well, and everybody was like, they could be down more. And this isn't just like Suns homers. These were announcers being like, they I think, should feel a little lucky that it's only a 13-point deficit.
It's
feeling like Denver to me a little bit. And I hope it's not the kiss of death. Then again, I affect nothing, and superstition's not real.
Take no blame.
Yeah. Like, it's feeling like the vibe that I got from the Denver game where it's just, we outmatched this team.
Yes. Every time they have a response, we have a response to that response. And I mean, and not to mention, Booker didn't have a great game. I mean, he was statistically good in the rebounds and assists. He didn't shoot particularly well.
Or a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, or a lot. McHale did.
Chris Paul took the game off. He might even admit that.
Jay Crowder hit a few shots, and he hasn't. I mean, I was telling Sean that night, it's like that's probably as much regression/progression to the mean. I'm not expecting him to go 4 for 4 again this series, but, he shot, as they said in the broadcast multiple times, 12% from 3 in the first round, so due to make some, but maybe you don't count on that. But again, like, I saw folks like, well, I don't know if Ayton's going to put up 20-plus again. It's like, Ayton's going to score 20-plus every game this series unless the Mavericks make a decision to stop him. Because the lineups they're likely to run, which is not Dwight Powell, there's no one who can guard him.
What did Ayton average in the Pelicans series? Does anyone
I
know?
guess like 19-8 or something.
Because if he's scoring in that series, he's going to be scoring in this one.
And it's funny, like I saw some write-up that said somehow the Mavericks small ball may be the answer to stopping Ayton because Ayton didn't score in the fourth quarter. I was just like, no.
We
the whole
always
team
do that.
kind of slowed down in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
But like, if they want to go small ball the whole time and have Reggie Bullock guarding Ayton, he's gonna have 30.
Yeah. Because the Suns are smart enough offense. It seems like we always miss Ayton, and I don't know why, and I don't think it's the guard's fault. Everybody's like, we got to feed Ayton more, and I think it's a mix of a few things. But the tendency does seem to be he really gets going early, then he kind of fades as the game goes on. So, yeah, he would kill them.
Ayton got 20 shots last night. That's a lot of shots for the Center.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, he made 12 of them, and a couple of those were kind of misses late, and he rushed a turnaround and blah, blah, blah. He averaged 20 and 9.5 in the first round, and obviously he had 25 and 8 last night. And the biggest issue is this. When he's on the floor, Dallas has to be extremely careful about how they switch all of our Spain pick and roll actions, any traditional pick and rolls, because the second they get a mismatch with a guard who ends up on him, he's going to seal them, and they're going to have a lob, an entry pass, or they're going to get a big switched on Paul or Booker, and they're going to go to work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's true of any matchup. That's not even like a Dallas-specific problem, but if Dallas goes small, the problem they're going to run into is like Dorian Finney-Smith is a good defender. If they go small, he's going to be the 5. He can't guard Ayton and then also guard Paul or Booker. So then who's guarding Paul or Booker? Jalen Brunson?
Yeah.
Good fucking luck.
I feel like we almost doubled their rebounds last night. It was
a big margin.
We were smashing them, and I was like, oh, so that's what this feels like. It's really nice.
And also, we're hunting Luka on the defensive end too, with the load he's expected to carry on the offensive end. I mean, I think it was Ayton or Chris Paul and Jay Crowder pick and rolls just to get Ayton or Luka isolated on Paul. Booker cooked Luka pretty easily. Like Chakrak just said in the chat, Mavericks just aren't a threat. I think the Suns have an answer for them, and I'm told you guys in our text that it would be a surprise if this goes longer than 5.
Like, Luka's phenomenal. As much as we love to hate on him and we're tired of him because of the Ayton comparison, blah, blah, blah. He could win a game or maybe even 2 by himself. But I don't know what it's going to take because he had a hell of a game last night and they lost anyways, and it was never that close. So, I don't want to sell them short. I'm not trying to jinx us, as Sean said. We don't actually affect anything. We don't want to seem pompous. I was least concerned about this matchup of any on the way to the championship, and that includes the Pelicans. Yeah, that's not retrospect. That's not hindsight speaking, because the Pelicans, between their mix of perimeter defenders and the Zion unknown, who didn't even end up playing, I was more worried about that than I was either this or Utah, because we match up so well with them. And in the next round, likely the Warriors or the Memphis, we'll see. But the Warriors in particular, not a great matchup for us in some ways. So yeah, I'm more concerned about that. If the Mavs end up winning this series, then this podcast is going to look like shit. But I'm not really that concerned about that happening. I'll be very honest.
Yeah. Dave, you would have liked this, or maybe you wouldn't, but I was talking to Chris and I was like, so we've had a lot of parallels to the Spurs from 2014 made. And I was like, this reminds me of what the Spurs used to do to Steve Nash, where is, you're going to probably get your numbers, you're going to get your assists, but we're going to make it hard on you. We're going to make you as inefficient as possible, and we're going to beat you to shit because we're really physical. And like Luka, I mean, how many plays, Chris, were you like, Luka's on the floor again? Yep. He was on the floor or getting boxed out, he got like a dead leg from a really hard box out. Legal, but like, we're a physical team now. So this is like his crucible. He's going to go through hell in this series.
And it's funny because the people call the Suns dirty because we're physical now, which I find funny. I mean, Jay Crowder's kick to the groin was unnecessary. I also could make an argument that he was trying to regain his balance passing out of a shot, which I have kicked my legs like that. It was likely just him trying to get what he could, kicking his legs out, and if I make contact. So it's fine with the flagrant 1 call. But like, I don't think you can call this team dirty. Physical, sure, but not dirty.
Well, I mean, Draymond was on social media with the eyeball emoji because he obviously just got tossed the night before, and it's like, yeah, but you committed 2 different flagrant fouls on the same play, Draymond. Yeah. It's not the same thing. Because you whacked the guy in the face, and there's one camera angle that's particularly bad, and then pulled him down by the jersey. Both of those could have been flagrants. Yeah. So what's flagrant 1 plus flagrant 1? Hey, the math checks out.
Yeah, the Golden State is interesting because like we address each other's weaknesses, and it's a really interesting matchup. They don't have the size really. but they have that, Hydra that they're calling them, but like actually good. Not like when the Suns were the Hydra.
Right.
So it's going to be weird, but we'll worry about Dallas, and then we'll see who makes it out of Memphis and Golden State. It's probably going to be Golden State. If nothing else than like the poise. I feel like Memphis isn't there yet on their like maturity, and they got by an even stupider Minnesota team.
Boy.
But I don't see
that series. Like,
even
They had 3 double-digit leads in the fourth quarter, and they lost them all.
Yeah. I just don't see. I think the experience, if nothing else, is going to outweigh Memphis, but we'll find out more soon.
Yep.
And, we already saw it in game 1 where they missed the game-winning layup.
Right. And Dave and I both have us playing Boston in the finals, to Track Rock's point. We'll see. They certainly looked a lot better tonight against Milwaukee than they did in game 1. It's amazing how quickly the narratives can turn. But at the end of the day, Milwaukee got a split on the road, so they took care of their business, and we'll see how the rest of the series goes. And Golden State and Memphis are tied into 3 right now as we speak, so who knows? But I don't think Memphis can afford to lose this one as well, because then they're down 2-0 going to Golden State. That's tough.
I saw a lot of Vegas odds of the Suns and Golden State are now tied. I don't know what you have your finger more on the pulse of that, Dave, but Golden State took the lead, and now they're dead even with the Suns, is from what I've seen, followed by Boston and Milwaukee.
The odds I saw this afternoon were funny. To win the Western Conference, it was Suns were plus 105, Warriors were plus 110, the Mavericks were plus 1500, and I think the Mavericks were plus 2000, and the Grizzlies were plus 1500. So It's like the Suns and the Warriors are basically the same odds, and then the other two are like just long shot odds.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we'll see. I told Chris going into this series, and this will especially be true on the Golden State series, I had so much anxiety and like anger in the Pelicans series, and that I just don't feel. Like if we end up losing to Dallas, I'll be like, look, it's going to take Luka playing really great. Fine. They're a basketball team. It's not going to be the worst upset in NBA history. It's like, it's okay. And so they've been a lot more enjoyable. It's only been one game, but like I had a much better time. Did it help that we blew them out? I mean, of course, but
it would actually, I mean, losing the Pelican series would have been horrible because it would have been referenced historically forever. But losing to Luke would be pretty bad because I hate heliocentric basketball. I think it's boring to watch.
Yeah.
And having a team that is a ball movement team like the Suns is versus losing to a heliocentric offense sucks. So,
yeah, well, if we don't kill this team, Golden State sure as hell will.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
that's another reason, though. Like Suns versus Golden State, that's like the way the ball should be played. And
been talking about it since December. Like it's been like, yep, this is going to be the Western Conference Finals, and it's going that way right now.
Could be. We'll see. So we'll keep checking in. We'll do at least like one bullet point of the 4 on them as we go through, and then as things warrant it, especially if we get closer to a title, we may go further in on it. But we'll just keep checking in because it's important to us, and that's the end of that. And that's the end of the episode. So goodbye, I guess.
Where's Cody?
Know. He's downstairs. He's being respectful.
What an idiot.
So that's the end of the episode. In between shows, you can find us at our website, objectionnetwork.com or youtube.com/objectionnetwork for this beautiful podcast and other videos 5 or 6 times a week. We'll see you next time.